The silence and harmony of empty multiplayer maps has this unsettling feeling to it. With a very low chance of me wanting to play any video game nowadays, I like to play it on an empty map in order to start the rust removing process and recover some of my game sense. But whenever I do this, I'm always accompanied by this spooky feeling, which feels as if you're watching some very tense movie or horror film. Usually when playing these games, genuine fear is the last thing I could bring up on my conscience. I'm usually focused up trying to eliminate my enemy, but here, there is no enemy. I know there isn't, which completely alters my experience of the game, since the prime sense I always had activated in my brain isn't present, since I know there isn't anything I need to protect myself from, or is there? As I walk through the map pointlessly, I call myself look in areas I have never before, paying attention to the slightest details of the textures. Whenever I pass areas, which are usually danger zones, I feel what I would describe as anxiety. In some sense, it leaves me in shock that there's nothing here. Once in real life, I have experienced a very similar feeling to this. Going back to the fact, whenever you play on these multiplayer maps, you expect to be expecting something to happen. Whether it is to shoot at someone or protect yourself at the right moment in time. Something which I'm going to compare this to is school. I hate mentioning school. Whenever I hear the word school, I just get shivers down my spine. Potentially PTSD. I'm still in school, by the way. 2 more years, guys. 2 more years. I can make it. Back in 2020, when the pandemic started, schools were supposed to close down for 2 weeks, and that 2 weeks changed into a few months. So the school called me and told me that I should basically just get my books from my locker. It was sort of pointless because I didn't study anyways. Obviously I did get my books. As I was entering the building, I felt the same feeling which I could compare to walking around in empty multiplayer maps. My brain adapted that the school environment is full of students walking around, and it is a big yet small area, since the capacity of the students make it look much smaller. As I was walking through the corridor, I just then realized how big this place actually is. Since my locker is upstairs, I always go upstairs and need to watch out to not accidentally bulldoze a first year. But that feeling wasn't there anymore because I knew nobody's in the school building, and it just felt very, very spooky and creepy. For me expecting something to be here, and yet it wasn't. As I was walking towards my locker, I realized I caught myself staring at random objects, paying attention to little details, which I have never cared about before because obviously, on a normal school day, you need to make sure you don't accidentally walk into somebody, and you always have something on your mind. But this was a completely different experience. This wasn't school, it was me collecting my book, and I was there by myself. So normally I wouldn't be able just to stare off into space and pay attention to the details on the walls. And I believe I can compare this feeling to a feeling of walking around a multiplayer map completely by yourself, with no distractions and the rules you have to obey. But aspects of what would you consider to be natural to the environment are now gone. The school is missing its students. The multiplayer maps are missing its players. When I was in school, I wasn't there to study. I wasn't there doing the usual thing I do. When you're on the multiplayer map by yourself, you aren't also playing the game properly. You're just walking around. You're doing something different in the same place you have before. Well guys, what do you think about this? Do you think my comparison makes any sense? Please let me know in the comments below. Check out some of my other videos, and for today, I am out. Goodbye.